it's the simplest formula that there is out there, but it makes so much logical sense when you put yourself in the position of either the person who's going to rent out the home or the person who's going to stay at the Airbnb.
As you know, I'm not a huge fan of short-term rentals because they have a lot of variables, and I hate variables. However, today we're going to be talking to John, who is taking the variables out of short-term. How is he doing it? You're going to find out here on this episode. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Christian, joined by John. John, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I had about half an hour, which was more time than we allocated to hang out with John before this call. I am really excited for this episode because you're a really smart guy, and what you're doing is actually pretty unique. When I think short-term rentals, I have a little resort called the Robin Hood Village Resort with my business partner, Cody. When I think short-term, I think variable income. I think difficult to control. I am a multifamily, long lease sort of guy.
Yeah.
When I was talking to you, you said part of your mission is eliminating those variables and consistent cash flow on propries. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your mission as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. So, name's John Bianchi, and the objective of my company is to ensure that nobody buys an unprofitable Airbnb ever again. So that's the main objective that I'm going for, to ensure that I have a reason for the business, I guess you could say, right? But what I do, and a little bit of my background of why I do this, is I'm also the head of data for TechVestor, which is the largest short-term rental investment fund in America. I have a consulting company. I've got products that I offer, and everything is always geared around the idea of ensuring that nobody's buying an unprofitable property. I think where this really comes from, just so people have an understanding, is that I have a really good track record right now. We're 72 for 72 with TechVestor's properties that are all cash flowing positive properties, right? We've bought 125, we've gotten 101 set up, but we have data released on 72. And so great track record. And I guess what really pains me is that I talk to a lot of people who have Airbnbs that made them literally no money. And that part kind of drives me nuts, right? Because I know that there's a method that you can follow with the data that's available to be able to get the answers that you want to get to be able to find a profitable property. So when I talk to somebody who's literally losing like $3,000 a month on a property that they just purchased, and they can't sell it because the value of the home has dropped as well, and then they also threw $30,000 to $50,000 into the furniture and amenities, it drives me nuts, right? Because they got sold this dream of an Airbnb that's going to cash flow really well for them. And then they went out and tried to do it, but they did it incorrectly. And now they're just losing money hand over fist. And so it's like, if I can stop that from happening, I will achieve my goal. So that's a little bit about me.
Now, how did you get started in real estate, just in general, short-term, long-term, anything? What is the origin story of John?
So I love business. I just love everything about business. I want to just understand business as best as I can throughout my entire life, right? And when I've been like this since I was a kid. And what I realized when I was a kid was that I had absolutely no money. And so I wanted to get started into some sort of business that would allow me to grow, right? And I started off with like lawn care services and different companies along those lines. But then eventually, I got into finance, and I got into being a financial planner, right? Which you can get into, and you build up your business through clientele. So you can slowly build it up, right? And eventually, if you do it long enough, you'll eventually have a nice book of business, and you're sitting pretty. And so the reason I'm explaining all that is because that's kind of like where it really got started. But what I realized eventually was that the financial planner business model doesn't allow you to expand in the way that I really wanted to. I wanted to have a larger scale business that would allow me to continue to expand. And so I started exploring all these different models, and I realized that there was this Airbnb thing out there where you could just keep getting more and more and more Airbnbs and continually grow that business as far as you possibly could, right? And I think that was the main thing that intrigued me about Airbnbs. And so I had an extra bedroom in my apartment. I released it out, I put it up on Airbnb. I had people start coming in. I got a feel for that experience. Then I, raised some money and opened up the first Airbnb, and then opened up the next Airbnb, and just kind of kept going from there. And then eventually COVID came, kind of wiped that business out, sold all my contracts off. And then I slowly got into this idea of understanding that I was really good at analyzing the data and other people weren't. And so I should figure out ways that I can teach people how to do that and build a business around that. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
I love that. One of the things you said, and all entrepreneurs listening to this, I want you to hear this. You left your first project for scalability. That is the number one thing I look at when I am starting a new business venture. There's only two things. There's really only two reasons you'd ever start a business. One, it serves a direct function that serves your other businesses, like my property management company. I would never choose to go into property management. It's hard to scale. It's easy for other people to get into and for new competitors to appear. However, I have a lot of rentals. When you're your own biggest client, that really helps. When you're looking for a core business, scalability is everything. I'm looking for something that can scale infinitely, which is how I ended up on the online course space and in multifamily real estate.
Right.
No one can buy all of the buildings. You can scale as long as you want. Airbnb is the same thing. That makes total sense to me.
Yeah. Now I'm actually, I think in a very similar way nowadays. The more that I've learned about business and the more that I understand different business models, that's definitely a big part for me as well. And that's why I'm actually getting a lot more of a focus into software and providing products through software and training with those products as well, which is something that not a lot of other people do. So instead of just like, hey, here's a software, use it. It's like, here's a software. This is how you use it. Right. And this is the most optimal way to put it together to use it to get the answers that you want to get. So I'm trying to combine those two, which has actually turned out to be an absolute bitch. Not going to lie. It's been super difficult. It's been, we've been going for like 8 months now, when we thought it was going to take a month, and we're at like 8 months of trying to get this thing put together in a way that is truly, truly beneficial and helpful, but just going to keep pushing on it until we get to the point where it's actually really helpful.
That's amazing. I don't share this a lot on the channel, but I actually, when I left the CoStar group, I actually left and started a data product. Started a 10-person call center. We're collecting data on small multifamily. That was a niche that I still think is underserved. Zillow doesn't track that well. And then groups like CoStar, I mean, they're looking at 5 units up, and really they only care about 25 units and up. So small multifamily data for entry-level investors. I was like, someone can take this whole market. It took a year plus to get profitable. In our first month of true profitability, where we were actually looking like this was going to take off, the other partner shut down the entire company. He's like, it's got too expensive. I'm like, well, yeah, we got to the part where we make money. And so the whole project got killed. That was my debut to software. Software is brutally hard, which is why anyone who makes it in software, you deserve all the rewards that come with it. It is very, very hard to integrate things, very hard to design. And
it's like, this is not a good analogy, but it's literally a tool that you have to get people to understand is a need, right? It's like, hey, I've built you a tool. Like the first person to use a hammer. Again, not a great analogy. That was what I was just thinking in my head. But I'm like, somebody had a hammer, and it's like, you got to use this. It's going to make your life easier. You know what I mean? And if they don't understand the value of it, they're not going to buy it, right? So I think that barrier is one of the hard parts when it comes to software, because you're always building a new tool that does something slightly different than it was the way it was done before, but apparently it's supposed to be better and more helpful, right?
Yeah.
So that's a hard part of it for sure.
Yeah. If anyone's tried to do their own renovations without the best tools, it's extremely hard. I remember when I first got a little door saw to undercut a door frame. I was like, they make a tool for this. Oh my gosh, I did it the hard way.
I just moved into to my first ever house that I've ever bought for myself. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Moved in like last weekend, and we've just been trying to fix up things. And I'm like, I have not enough tools. I was like, we can't do half the stuff I want to do right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I think that ended up being a perfect analogy. That's exactly what it is. You don't realize that you need the tool until you realize that you need the tool, and you use it once, and you're like, I can't believe that I did this project without this tool. And that is very much what software design is. So you're trying to take the unpredictability out of the short-term rentals. It is the only thing I don't like about short-term rentals. Short-term rentals, you can really push yield. You're going for maximum revenue, which means you have to consistently keep it full. I'm in a resort in a seasonal town, so there's not too much I think I can do about my property, because I have summers. I make about 50% of our money for the year in about 2.5 months. And then the rest of the year is the down year. But if you're doing single family and you're buying these in the right locations, presumably,
Hmm.
um, give me the nuts and bolts. Like, what is the solution to the variable income? How do you accurately predict what an Airbnb will make?
So I mean, I'll try and give the overview, right? Because I quite literally have like hours and hours of content of trying to help people understand this.
Mm,
But um, the we have data on every single Airbnb that exists across the entire world, right? And we know exactly how much each one of those Airbnbs is making. It's not
mm,
perfect data, it's scraped data, but it's close enough. And so if you can take that data and use it and you understand how to read it, what to look for, and how to make sense of what you're looking at. Now, it's not overly complicated. You're literally just looking to see, I see an Airbnb, it's a 4 bedroom within a certain city. And I go, okay, I got a 4 bedroom in Austin, and this 4 bedroom is making $100,000 a year. I go, great. Here's another 4 bedroom that's making $150,000 a year. What is the difference between these two? Right? Why is that happening? And what you do is you study the data enough to be able to recognize a pattern within the data. And so I use the Burger King logic. McDonald's, which states that McDonald's spends $1 million to figure out what corner to be on. Burger King opens up across the street, right? It's very, very simple logic. The reason I explain that is because I didn't go to school to become a data scientist or a data analyst or anything along those lines. I literally just took that logic and ran with it. And so the way that I see this is that if you have all of the data on all of the Airbnbs that exist across the entire world, and you start to review every single 4 bedroom in one zip code in Austin, you're eventually going to be able to understand what is allowing one of the properties to make more than the other property. And then once you understand that, you can replicate it, right? And you can put together a property that would be competitive and beat out that other 4 bedroom. And so now, and if there's enough data in that area, okay, like Austin's a great example. There's a ridiculous amount of data in Austin. And so in Austin, you can very clearly see there'll be like 24 bedrooms that are all within one zip code. And they're doing between 100 and 300,000. And if you review every single last one of those, you're going to be able to figure out what's allowing them to drive revenue. You then go look at a property that's for sale and you find the property that has the characteristics of the higher performing properties, right? Or at least the one that will give you the best, price to rent ratio. And then what you do is you then move forward on one of those properties and put it together better than everybody
mm,
else, right? And so now what you've essentially done with everything else being equal, like obviously the economy can drop and travel's going to hurt, and that's a given, right? Which is one variable that's impossible to remove. But what you can do is you can remove the variable of I'm going to put together this property on Airbnb. I have no idea how much it's going to make. You can by reviewing all the data, you can so I'm going to put this property onto Airbnb, and as long as I add a hot tub and I put some nice string lights up and I add a nice little backyard setup and I give it a good design, I take good photos, I'm going to make $125,000 a year. My expenses on this property is going to be 75,000. Therefore, I'm going to walk away with $50,000 a year in revenue. And then what I can do is I can keep an eye on my competition, and if I need to improve this property as time goes on, I can do that, and that'll kind of keep me in the top category of these homes and allow me to continue to make that 125 year over year. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
That was the shortest I could ever explain that.
No, I love that. How does skill play into this as an operator? So, and I'm an analytics guy too. So I was a CoStar sales rep for 4 years. I've sold data. I live in data.
Love that.
When we're data guys, how much variability do you have between just one operator and another? Like, I feel like there's a good deal of on an Airbnb, some of the little things go a really long way. Is there any way
Yep.
that you can put any sort of weighting on that for what metrics they need to hit to fall within the statistical averages?
That's the golden question. So great question. What you're essentially asking is like, if I had a hot tub, how much is it going to increase my revenue? Is that right?
Or something
Roughly?
along that. It's like, with, are there key points that you need to fall into? So yeah, it's like, should they have a hot tub? It doesn't need to have that accent wall that
Yep.
pictures well to get the
Right.
thing. Like, is there a
Is it,
statistical difference where we can find there are certain things that you need to be doing if you
right.
want to fall within the expected range for this area?
Right. So it's not a perfect science. It's not perfect when you
No.
review it. And like there's people who are trying to do it, and I strongly disagree with the way that they're doing it. I think that it's very inaccurate the way they're doing it, but it is what it is. And so the way that I've always viewed this is that what I'll do is I'm not going to know for a fact that I'm not going to know if I get a square pool compared to a round pool that I'm going to make $15,000 more. I don't know for a fact, but what I do know is that I can review enough of the top performing properties to see things that they have that other properties don't have. So, as an example, I just went through this analysis for a client, and he's looking to get a property, and I've never reviewed any data in this city, but once I reviewed this data, what I actually realized was that all the top performers were single family homes that had a backyard that was well put together, that had either like some sort of fire pit, some sort of outdoor seating area. And honestly, the interior really didn't matter that much with how it was designed or even photographed. Now, mind you, if you designed it better and photographed it better, it's going to do even better. But what I'm trying to get at is that the core things that I realized mattered there was to have a single family home with a decent sized backyard that you could add some good amenities to and create that nice experience. And if you can get that nice combination with a good amount of like interior space, then you're going to be one of the top performers in that market. So the way that I see it is I go, I don't know for a fact that if I get if I add a fire pit into that backyard, that I'm going to make an extra $5,000. But what I do know is that if I want to be able to compete in this market and be one of the best properties in this market, I want to make sure that I have a single family home with a good backyard that I can add those things to it. And then that's going to kind of put me in that range of how much they're making. And so what's going to end up happening is I now know generally where I'm going to end up landing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. That does make sense. And so, no, I actually like that because it's actually very similar. Essentially, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, it's very similar to how I look at multifamily properties. It's not that I am trying to design a property a certain way, because I get asked that a lot. We do a lot of design. I did $1 million of renovation last year that my wife coordinated with our teams. When we're doing renovation, it's not, hey, we're going to fit a specific rubric. It's we understand what the properties around us that we're competing with have. We're going to come in very slightly under market price, and our properties are going to be very slightly better than the other properties around us. If everyone around us has carpet, and I hate carpet,
yeah,
we're gonna do laminate floors that are really nice looking, and they're gonna photograph better, and they're gonna lease more, and they're gonna be the same price, and we spent barely more. If your competition has stone countertops, have stone countertops. If they don't, you don't need them. Just do stainless steel appliances instead of there. Just be a little better and a little cheaper, and you'll stay fully leased to multifamily. It sounds like the same principles apply to Airbnb.
100%. So it's literally this. It's the simplest formula that there is out there, but it makes so much logical sense when you put yourself in the position of either the person who's going to rent out the home or the person who's going to stay at the Airbnb. There's going to be one point in time where they are going to review all the apartments that are for rent, and they're going to review all of the Airbnbs, and they're going to try and decide which one they want. And at one point they're going to notice, hey, this apartment is like kind of slightly nicer than all these other ones, and it's actually like really well priced in comparison. So why would I not go with that one, right? Exact same thing applies to Airbnb. It's you've got all these the thing is that with an Airbnb there's more variables. So as long as you take the time to understand the additional variables, you can then compete with everybody else, right? So if the analysis from this morning, if I just grab some random property and put it up, I wouldn't know what all the variables are that drive the revenue. But now I know it's single family home with a good backyard and well put together, right? So it's like perfect. I'll do all that. I'll do it slightly better. But with Airbnb, typically what ends up happening is you actually can put it slightly higher because you're offering more value. You're giving more of an experience. You're putting together a better experience. But this is where it's not bulletproof, but it helps a ton, especially when the economy dips, is that in the short-term rental market, if you put together a listing that is better than everybody else's, when the economy does dip, you lower your price to the exact same as everybody else's or slightly more, and guess who's getting booked, right? At that point, it's going to become unfair in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. But when the economy is going well, your prices are much higher than everybody else's because people are willing to pay for it. So it's kind of the beauty of it. But yes, we're saying the exact same thing.
So this is a fantastic way to take the variables out of Airbnb. Now, granted, there's still more variables, but you can account for each of them. And if you can do a good job of statistically accounting for all of them, you're going to be much more successful. John, if someone is trying to learn more about this, trying to get connected, or really wants to pursue Airbnb in a given market, how do they find you?
My recommendation to everyone is go straight to my YouTube channel, look up my name or the Airbnb data guy. I've got 3 free courses on YouTube that are going to teach you everything you need to know. And then once you have learned all of that, if you want to reach out, you can reach out. My email is available on the About page of my YouTube channel. But that's my strongest recommendation. You're going to learn almost everything from the YouTube channel.
That is fantastic. And if any of you want to learn how to buy any of these properties with or without money, there's also a free course in the link below here. So check out John. We'll link his page below. If you guys want to learn more on how we buy properties, click those links below because all of them are free. We love sharing information. We're data guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.